Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, Keith. I always enjoy coming to these meetings. I'm going to be quick so that my colleague from Ontario can come up and give an excellent presentation too. So our forest health program is obviously guided by ministerial outcomes, and our ministry goals and objectives are to protect the environment and promote sustainable use of natural resources and enhance economic and social benefits. And to do this, we collect information to guide policy and risk analysis and action. Through air surveys, ground surveys, we can determine and delineate the extent and severity of disturbances across Crown lands predominantly. In order to do this properly, we strongly support research to fill in uncertainties and knowledge gaps, and to make sure that our information that's guiding our response and policies is the best information available. Our forest health program is the core program. I just went through a core program review. It's broken into policy development, surveillance monitoring, pest management and mitigation. That's when we actually have some pests to deal with specifically. Dealing with science and technology extension, communication and further extension. In contrast to Erica's massive budget, our budget is just over 2 million, 2.175 million. And from this, what we use is predominantly to address boreal forest pest disturbances. In the southern part of the province, we're responsible for the Dutch elm disease monitoring and management in certain areas. And historically, this budget's been allocated towards active response to spruce budworm outbreak, which peaked in 2002, and it's now collapsed to the point where we found no defoliation from our aerial surveys last year. Of our total budget, nearly 80% of it goes to mountain pine beetle. So this is an indication of how seriously we take this problem, this issue, and how much effort we're putting into understanding it, but also monitoring for it and preparing ourselves in case in the event of needing mitigation. 14% is all other insects, so all of our other aerial surveys to detect forest disturbances, whether it be by fungal diseases. Contrary to what the keynote speaker said, we've actually had sort of 4 or 5 years of extreme wet, humid conditions in Saskatchewan. So we're finding a lot of foliar disease and disease issues across the province. Administration's 4%, so that's predominantly dealing with contractors. There's only 3 of us in the province dealing with this, and I don't do any work. So this is for the contract administration. We're involved very deeply in the National Forest Pest Strategy and Canadian Council of Forest Ministers. We work with the Forest Pest Working Group, and through that process we've endorsed a risk analysis approach where we're looking at triggers and identifying mitigation options and basing our decisions on that and resulting communications. So our strategic approach particularly is prevention. We're in the enviable perhaps position where we can see the problem coming down the pipe. So we can benefit greatly from the experiences that Art Stock has presented, as well as Erica's work and what her team are doing in terms of management and developing systems. We can inherit a lot of that knowledge, and we benefit greatly from that. But in the interim, we can assess risk. We put in regulatory controls. We do surveillance and early detection. We believe that early detection and rapid aggressive response, where appropriate, is the approach, and that's backed up in recent publications from Dyna 6 and also some of the work that I think Alan will be presenting later on. And then, of course, communication, research, and partnerships. And to illustrate that is our excellent collaboration with the province of Alberta. Suppression, we look at minimizing the impact of a major outbreak in the long term, and that preventive strategies are typically beetle focused, so they're short term. This would be a long term approach where we would try to work with forest industry to work with reducing the susceptible pine forest load on the landscape, bearing in mind all the other values at risk. So the threat is, the triggers are quite simple. There's the pine forest. There was Kathy's keynote paper of determining that jack pine is a viable and effective host for mountain pine beetle. So back in the mid 2000s, my deputy said to me, "Tell me when it's in jack pine. I don't, these are all triggers and problems, but I'm worried when it's in jack pine." So by the time I got to jack pine, he'd moved. But I did tell him. So this is the spread, and I know Barry will go deal with this in greater detail. So I'll just leave it there. We know that it's spread 2 big hops, so it's getting closer and closer. There's no restriction in terms of host connectivity and susceptibility, and there's plenty of beetles there to fuel the spread. So we're concerned about that. But significantly, in terms of our approach, this area here is very, very poorly connected forest. So in our opinion, this is the battleground, and this is why we are collaborating with Alberta, in terms of operations, but also financially and supporting and sharing everything we can with Erica's group. Values at risk. I'll just briefly go over this. A substantial amount of softwood manufactured in Saskatchewan is jack pine. 20% of the volume of trees all south of the Churchill river drainage is jack pine, and we have a rebounding forest industry. In the 2007, 2008, with the housing starts collapsing in the U.S., PA pulp mill collapsed. So we have significant values at risk, including species at risk and caribou habitat and maintaining those values. The second speaker today talked about communities and about those aspects, those impacts. So we have some significant forest-dependent communities in the province, in Prince Albert, L'Orange, Meadow Lake, and Creighton in the east. So these are valuable and important assets to protect. Many provincial parks are at risk, and I'd like to point out we have our parks ecologist here, Dr. Rob Wright. If you could wave your hand, then I'm going to defer any questions about park restructuring and forest management in the Cypress Hills to Rob. He's the main man for that. So we recognize that mountain pine beetle poses a national risk, and I know Taylor will speak to that. So some of the things we can do in the interim in terms of regulatory controls. In 2002, we put on a restriction order to prevent the movement of pine forest products with bark attached from Alberta, BC, and the United States. And this was preemptive to prevent anthropogenic movement of wood, beetles with wood, in the outbreak years in British Columbia, where there was an abundance of wood supply on the market, and very tempting to get that. A little bit later on, we were also able, through our act, our Forest Resources Management Act, to designate insects and pests as pests under the Act. And that provides us greater powers of inspection and action on private lands if necessary. So we can designate pests, insects, and mountain pine beetle is designated as a pest in our province, and we can designate lands. So we can say where that is enacted in terms of the Forest Resources Management Act. So I talked about triggers and adaptation and the opportunity to learn from other agencies downwind. This is really a timeline just to illustrate our thought processes. So in 2002, there were 25 trees, I believe, in Canmore in Alberta. It's early days. And in BC, it had just peaked, or just exceeded a historic high in 2002. So this is where this issue triggered this response down here, and so forth all the way along. In 2007, we drafted a strategy framework. We worked together with AESRD, or SRD at the time, to marry our forest inventories so that we would have an ability to do a seamless risk, I suppose, of looking at critical pathways of potential threat, but also to enable us to focus our surveys in areas of greatest risk. 2008 upwards to 2013-14 had an increase in the Cypress Hills in Saskatchewan. There were 2 in-flights, 2006 and 2009 in Alberta, and the collapse or the decline in the outbreak in BC, as Art showed. So these timelines illustrate our ability to learn from and adapt and modify our activities from other agencies. Involved here, we involved with Alberta, 2011-13 formally, investing financial support in controlling eastern spread in northeastern Alberta. And in 2015-17, we renewed that agreement again for another 3 years. So we're committed to this. Road ahead, our keynote speaker this morning talked about forests basically being driven by the underlying soils and the soil conditions. So this is the forest that we have ahead of us. You've got these little small pockets of pine that are sitting on those glacial moraines or till, and in a matrix of other species like the aspen, and in the lower lying areas in the spruce, black spruce. So we don't expect this sea of red as it transitions into the naive environment, the novel host and the naive host environment. And I know Barry will speak more to that. So we focus on addressing uncertainties to help to guide our work. So in the front line, we've got poorly connected stands. This is where we think we have the best opportunity of slowing the spread into Saskatchewan and eastward. Poorly connected stands, but we don't understand dispersal in this novel environment. The climate suitability currently is low, but it's predicted to increase. And the environment itself, Jack Pine, is showing to be more attractive, some of the work that Alan's put together. But there's currently a lot of great work coming from Alan's lab on the endemic niche, and I think we can see some of that on the ground on the eastern side, where we're seeing some of these beetles just not doing so well, right on the very, very leading edge. So this was the announcement of our collaboration with Alberta. This is the second formalized agreement. We work with Tom and Erica on the eastern edge, and Mike helps us a great deal in working on tree baiting network to monitor the leading edge, but also level 1 control action in stands and surveillance and monitoring quality assurance on those leading edge stands that are of greatest risk to Saskatchewan. And this is predominantly east of Slave Lake and in the Martin Hills area. Expenditures in Alberta, if we include this year's, where we're going to be committing approximately 1.1 million, so up to a potential 1.25 million, we're looking at nearly 4 million invested in Alberta, outside of our province, to prevent spread into our province. Conversely, in the province itself, we've been working mostly in the Cypress Hills, but we've also been doing our surveys in the northwest. We're looking at approximately just under 3 million since 2007. So we are focusing in both areas. Erica showed this map, and it's significant. These are the date sites that Tom has set up, and we're helping we're supporting work on that, delineating the leading edge. And we see that in 2013, there were the closest positive tree. Again, it was just a one beetle in one tree was 50 kilometers from the border. Now, that causes a stir politically with us. However, in 2014, that distance increased considerably. The closest positive tree was 120, 130 kilometers from the Saskatchewan border. And part of this, and I know that Alan's group are working in this sort of leading edge area, and they're finding that the endemic niche is that the beetles are attacking, but they're not establishing, and they're not doing well. So this is really positive, work for us. We're very pleased about this and optimistic. So what we're doing in the northwest, I showed you in that slide, it's virtually impossible to get on the ground. There's no road infrastructure north of the weapons range. These orange polygons are all recent fires, so we're not focusing our surveys in there, but we're focusing in the high susceptible stands, which are in red, and focusing on those to watch for any instance of beetles. And again, this is detection. These black spots are all heli landing areas that we've cut in the northwest to allow us access to the ground, but also to deploy tree baits to extend the monitoring, the detection system that Alberta has already on to the west. So this is a continuation across the political border of that monitoring system. So we can watch as it spreads and detect. And the heli landing areas will enable us to get on the ground for rapid response if necessary. No mountain pine beetle detected in arboreal forest to this point in time. Cypress Hills, this is where we do have, in the southwest corner of the province, we do have mountain pine beetle action there. The last outbreak, Erica indicated in the 80s, there was the outbreaks in the Southern Rockies. From 80 to 82 was the peak outbreak in the Cypress Hills. I think in 1982, the highest number of trees removed was just over 4,000 trees. This is lands to the south, and you can see it's been established there some time. This is grey attack, red attack, and everything between is green, probably green attack. So we're expecting these lands to the south of the park to be dying out fairly soon. So as the park, it's got the park boundary, which is crown lands, but around it is still pine forest. We treat it as an entire pine ecosystem. So we survey outside the park, and we provide other partners with that information, including First Nations, ranchers, and others. So one of the two First Nations bands, they removed just over 1,000 trees in lands just to the south of us, and the other one actually owns this piece of land and are, I think, leaving it to go. This is a map. We do map polygons in these particular areas because we survey and we try to remove every green attacked tree. As you can see from this little map at the bottom, the little graph at the bottom, the peak was 444 trees removed in the West Block, and it's now down to 238 trees marked for removal in 2014. So it's on the decline. Whether that's a matter of us doing this rapid aggressive response or not is to be told. But there is a longer term strategy for the forest age class distribution and structure here. This is all fire, a lot of it's fire origin from the late 1800s and quite susceptible. But I know Rob has got some plans in terms of the forest structure there. Center block, same kind of thing. We're monitoring these spots. There's removals, 49 last year. This year, 49 this year, 33 last year. So slight increase, but not to be worried about. We are going to be we've left some trees upstanding specifically to do some R values, just to look at overwintering population and you get some population data for this. It probably won't drive our response. We're still going to go in and be as aggressive as we can. So from here on, we continue our collaboration with Alberta. We'll continue to monitor those baits, work with trying to fill in the gap of land in that Cold Lake air weapons range where we can't access, and continue to support our research that will help to guide us in the future. And this is our crew. Well, two of them are. This is JR from the park system. And thank you.